The diplomatic shuttle touched down on the Council homeworld 3 hours before the scheduled vote. Ambassador David Ross checked his reflection one last time in the small mirror. His gray hair was neatly combed, his dark blue suit pressed without a single wrinkle. This presentation had taken 6 months to prepare. Earth needed those mining rights in the outer rim. Their colonies were expanding, and resources were running thin. Patricia Webb sat across from him in full military dress. The Admiral had insisted on coming, though Ross had told her it was unnecessary. She disagreed. Where Earth's future was concerned, the military should have a voice. Her medals caught the light as the shuttle door opened. They walked through corridors made of materials Earth had never seen. The walls shifted colors as they passed, responding to some technology humans had yet to understand. Other species moved past them without acknowledgement. Some wore environment suits. Others breathed the same air. The galaxy was vast and diverse, and Earth was still learning its place. The council chamber rose before them like a cathedral. Tiered seats climbed in a semicircle, each level holding different species. Holographic displays floated everywhere, translating thousands of languages simultaneously. At the top sat Council Speaker Torin, his purple scales gleaming under artificial light. His robes were woven with gold thread that seemed to move on its own. Ross took his position in the center, a spotlight activated above him. Hundreds of alien eyes turned his way. He activated his datapad and began. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come representing the United Earth government with a proposal for expanded mining operations in Sector 7 of the Outer Rim. As you know, Earth has contributed significantly to Council peacekeeping efforts over the past decade. Our forces have protected 12 different worlds from pirate raids. Our engineers have built defensive networks for 6 member species. Our medical teams have responded to 4 plague outbreaks across Council space. He pulled up holographic charts showing Earth's contributions. The numbers were impressive by any measure. Human ships had logged more patrol hours than any other species in recent years. Human lives had been lost protecting worlds that were not their own. We believe this record demonstrates Earth's commitment to the Council and justifies consideration of our request. The proposed mining zone is currently unused and would provide resources necessary for our growing colonies. Ross finished and waited. The silence stretched for 10 seconds, then laughter erupted from the Krellian section. Ambassador Threx stood, his green armored plates clicking together as he moved. Mining rights. Earth wants mining rights. More laughter rippled through the chamber. Tell me, Ambassador Ross, what makes you think your primitive species deserves anything beyond what we already generously provide? Ross kept his face neutral. Our record of service speaks for itself. Service? Threk's voice dripped with contempt. You mean the basic duties we allow you to perform? Every species contributes to Council security. You act as though humans invented peacekeeping. A Vorfian delegate rose next, her translucent skin pulsing with what Ross had learned to recognize as amusement. Perhaps Earth misunderstands its position here. You are observers, not equals. We granted you Council status as a courtesy, not because you earned it. Torin leaned forward from his elevated throne. The human delegation seems confused about how the Council operates. This is not a democracy where every species receives equal consideration. This is a meritocracy. Species earn their place through advancement, through contribution of technology and wisdom. What has Earth offered besides manual labor? Ross felt Webb tense beside him. He touched her arm gently, a silent message to stay calm. Our proposal included technological data, Ross said. Human innovations in faster-than-light navigation, our advances in medical treatment for cross-species application, Your technology, a Draxan representative interrupted. You mean the technology you reverse-engineered from our gifts? Earth had barely achieved orbital flight when we made contact. Everything you have, you learned from us. And now you claim you deserve expanded territory. The chamber filled with overlapping voices, all saying variations of the same thing. Earth was primitive. Earth was ungrateful. Earth should be happy with what it had. Some suggested humanity's territory should be reduced, not expanded. Others questioned whether Earth deserved Council observer status at all. Torin raised one hand and silence fell immediately. Let us vote on the human proposal. All in favor of granting Earth's request for expanded mining rights in Sector 7, indicate now. Ross watched the holographic display. Not a single light appeared in the affirmative column. The vote was unanimous, denied. Furthermore, Torin continued, I propose we reconsider Earth's military protection treaties. If humans believe they have contributed so greatly, perhaps they no longer need our guidance and protection. Perhaps they can defend their own territory without Council support. The vote on that measure passed with equal unanimity. Laughter echoed through the chamber again. Some species were already standing, clearly considering the matter closed and Earth properly put in its place. Ross saved every second of the session to his datapad. Every laugh, every insult, every dismissive gesture. He looked up at Torin and the assembled council members. His expression remained perfectly calm, but something had changed in his eyes. The United Earth Government thanks the Council for their time and consideration, he said formally. We will relay your decisions to our leadership. Webb followed him out of the chamber. Her jaw was clenched so tight he could see the muscles working. They walked in silence until they reached the shuttle. Only when the door sealed behind them did she speak. They humiliated us, publicly, after everything we have done for them. Ross sat down and opened an encrypted communication channel directly to Earth. His fingers moved across the holographic keyboard with practiced precision. The message was brief, just 3 words and a recommendation. Article 7, activate immediately. Webb watched him work. What is Article 7? Ross looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. It was not anger. It was something colder, more calculated. It is the protocol for complete withdrawal from all Council obligations and treaties. Military, economic, scientific, everything. They will panic when our ships leave their borders undefended. Yes, Ross said simply, they will. The shuttle lifted off from the Council homeworld. Behind them, alien species celebrated what they thought was a victory. They had reminded Earth of its place. They had shown these primitive humans that the galaxy had an order and Earth was at the bottom. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. President Morgan Hayes reviewed the footage for the 4th time. Her office deep beneath the Colorado mountains showed no windows, just walls of screens displaying information from across human space. The council session played again, alien laughter filling the secure room. Her cabinet sat in uncomfortable silence, watching their ambassador be mocked like a child asking for candy. Recommendation accepted, Hayes said quietly. She pressed her palm against the biometric scanner. Across the globe, similar scanners activated. Within minutes, 12 other hands confirmed the order. Article 7 was now in effect. General Frank Miller stood near the tactical display. Madam President, we can begin immediate withdrawal, but I need to stress the consequences. We are currently protecting 17 Council worlds. We maintain defensive satellites around 42 stations. Our medical ships are responding to an outbreak on the Talisian homeworld. Our engineering teams are maintaining life support on 3 different colony habitats. And we do all of this while they laugh at us, Hayes replied. While they call us primitive, while they suggest we should be grateful they even acknowledge our existence. A woman in a white lab coat spoke up. Dr. Rebecca Stone had spent 8 years installing defensive networks across Council space. Madam President, if we withdraw, people will die. Species who have no military capacity will be vulnerable. The Talisians alone could lose millions without our medical intervention. Hayes turned to face her. Dr. Stone, I appreciate your concern, I truly do, But tell me something. When you installed those defensive satellites, did any of the species you protected thank you? Stone hesitated. Some did. Some. And did the Council acknowledge your work in any official capacity? No, ma'am. Did they offer to share the technology that would let those species defend themselves? Stone looked down. No, they said it would upset the established order. Hayes nodded. The established order, where we do the work, risk our lives, spend our resources, and in return we receive nothing but mockery. I am done with that order. General Miller, begin withdrawal. All personnel, all equipment, everything we installed or maintain. Bring it all home. The orders went out on encrypted channels. Human ships across the galaxy received identical messages. Return to Earth immediately. Abandon all Council positions. Remove all defensive equipment. Terminate all aid operations. The timeline was aggressive. 72 hours for complete withdrawal. On the border world of Hestara, Captain Lucas Grant read his orders with disbelief. His destroyer and 4 support ships had been protecting this Draxan colony for 3 years. They had fought off 6 pirate raids, losing 23 crew members in the process. The Draxan governor had never visited the human section of the station, had never acknowledged their sacrifice. Grant gave the order. Within hours, human ships powered up their engines. The defensive satellites they had placed in orbit received shutdown codes. Advanced sensor arrays that had cost Earth billions went dark. The network that had made Hestara nearly impregnable simply ceased to function. The Draxan governor finally sent a message. Captain Grant, what is happening? Why are your ships leaving position? Grant kept his response professional. We have been recalled to Earth. Our protection treaty with your people has been terminated per Council decision. Good luck, Governor. The same scene repeated across dozens of systems. Human medical ships treating alien plagues packed up and departed. Engineers maintaining critical life support systems downloaded their work and erased the files. Trade agreements that had taken years to negotiate were formally canceled with the minimum required notice. At the Council Station Nexus 7, thousands of human personnel began evacuation. The station administrator, a Vorfian named Selen, rushed to the human section. What is the meaning of this? You cannot just leave. Commander Amy Price continued supervising the withdrawal. Our treaty obligations have been terminated. I suggest you contact the Council for guidance. But you maintain half the systems on this station. Life support, power distribution, waste management. We installed those systems as part of our contribution to the Council, Price said. We are now removing our contribution. The specifications are in the station computer. I am sure the Council's superior technology will have no trouble managing basic maintenance. Selen's translucent skin darkened with what might have been fear. You are leaving us to die. Price stopped and looked at the alien directly. No, we are leaving you to fend for yourselves. There is a difference. Perhaps the species who find us so primitive should have no trouble with these simple systems. Within 48 hours, the withdrawal was 70% complete. The Galactic Communications Network lit up with confused messages. Council species were suddenly discovering just how much they had relied on human presence. Trade routes without human patrol ships became hunting grounds for pirates. Stations began reporting system failures. Colony worlds realized their defenses were now just decorative. The Council called an emergency session. Torin stood before a chamber much emptier than usual. Many delegates had rushed home to deal with crises on their own worlds. This is outrageous, Threk shouted. Earth cannot simply abandon its obligations. A human representative appeared via hologram. It was not Ambassador Ross. It was a young woman named Diana Foster from Earth's diplomatic corps. The Council voted to reconsider our protection treaties. We agreed. We reconsidered them and found them not in Earth's interest. We are simply following the Council's wisdom. You are being childish, another delegate yelled. People will die because of your petulance." Foster's expression remained neutral. People have died for years protecting Council worlds. 23 humans died defending Hestara alone. The Council never acknowledged their sacrifice, never offered condolences to their families, never even bothered to learn their names. Now you complain that we choose to stop dying for those who mock us. Torin tried to regain control. The Council acted hastily. Perhaps we can negotiate. Earth is no longer interested in negotiating from a position of begging, Foster interrupted. If the Council wishes to discuss new arrangements, Earth will be happy to listen. But first, you will learn to value what you had. The hologram vanished. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Some species demanded military action against Earth. Others suggested economic sanctions. A few, the quieter ones, simply looked worried. On the edges of known space, long-range sensors registered something unusual. A massive fleet was moving toward Council territory. The signature did not match any known species. Automated warning systems activated, sending alerts to the nearest stations. But those stations were no longer manned by humans, and the species now responsible for monitoring the borders were discovering that running a galactic defense network was far more complicated than they had assumed. The warnings went unnoticed. The approaching fleet continued its course. Earth knew about the sensors. They had installed them after all, but Earth was no longer sharing information with the Council. The data flowed back to human space, where analysts studied it with growing concern. "Madam President," General Miller said, "the Ravagers are 3 weeks from Council space." Hayes looked at the tactical display. "How long until they reach the first inhabited world?" 21 days, maybe less. And the Council? They have no idea what is coming. The children of Hestara played in the central plaza while their parents worked in the surrounding buildings. The Draxan colony had been peaceful for generations, protected first by ancient Council treaties and more recently by human ships. The sky above was the perfect blue of a terraformed atmosphere, with 3 small moons visible even in daylight. Then the sky went dark. At first people thought it was a storm, but the darkness did not come from clouds. It came from ships, thousands of them blocking out the sun like a swarm of insects. The vessels were unlike anything in Council records. Their hulls looked organic, like the shells of massive beetles, dark and segmented. Red lights pulsed along their surfaces like veins carrying blood. The Ravagers had arrived. Governor Meckel watched from his office tower as the first ships descended. He activated the emergency defense grid, the system humans had installed 3 years ago. Nothing happened. The satellites were dark, powered down when the human ships departed. He sent frantic commands to the Planetary Defense Force. "Get every ship in the air. Activate all ground batteries. Send a distress signal to the Council." The Draxan military scrambled to respond. Fighters launched from hangars across the colony. Ground-based weapons powered up, their targeting systems locking onto the descending swarm. For a moment, Meckel felt hope. They could fight without human help. They had to. The Draxan fighters opened fire first. Energy weapons struck Ravager ships with precise accuracy. The attacks did nothing. The organic hulls absorbed the energy like sponges absorbing water. The Ravagers did not even bother to return fire. They simply continued descending. When the invaders reached the ground batteries, they released smaller craft. These were even more insectoid, with multiple legs that grabbed onto the defensive installations. Weapons systems went offline one by one as the smaller Ravagers attached themselves and began draining power directly from the reactors. Meckel sent another message. "Any Council ship in range, this is Hestara. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Request immediate military assistance." The response came from the Council military coordinator on Nexus 7, the same station that had been struggling without human maintenance. "Hestara, we read you. Can you identify the attackers? Unknown species, they are landing now. Our defenses are not working. Where are the human ships? A long pause. The human ships are gone. We are organizing a response fleet. Hold your position. Hold their position. Mecca watched through his window as Ravager ships landed in the plaza where children had been playing minutes ago. The organic vessels opened like flowers and creatures emerged. They walked on multiple legs, their bodies covered in the same dark chitinous armor as their ships. They carried no visible weapons. They did not need them. They simply touched buildings and the structures began to dissolve. The Ravagers were not conquerors. They were harvesters. They consumed everything. Metal, stone, even the terraformed soil itself. Anything with useful resources disappeared into their bodies, processed and stored for transport back to their fleet. Across the galaxy, the same nightmare repeated. The Ravagers hit 3 more colony worlds within 24 hours, then 6 more, then 12. Council military forces tried to respond but discovered something terrible. Without human coordination, they could not organize effectively. Different species used different tactical systems. Communication protocols varied. Ships arrived at defensive positions but had no unified command structure to direct them. The Vorfian homeworld defense fleet engaged a Ravager force near their 4th moon. The battle lasted 6 minutes. Every Vorfian ship was destroyed or disabled. The Ravagers did not lose a single vessel. They learned to adapt to energy weapons within the first minute of combat, their organic ships evolving in real time to counter the attacks. An emergency council session convened in the Grand Chamber. This time, less than half the seats were occupied. Species were pulling their ambassadors home, trying to mount defenses of their own worlds. Torin looked exhausted. His golden robe seemed too heavy for his frame. This council is now in crisis mode. We face an enemy unlike anything in our records. The beings calling themselves Ravagers have destroyed 7 worlds and are advancing deeper into council space. Our military response has been ineffective. This is Earth's fault, Threk roared. His green plates were scorched from a pirate attack on a convoy he had been traveling with. Without human patrols, the trade routes had become death traps. They knew this was coming. They abandoned us deliberately. A Talisian delegate managed to connect via a weak hologram. Half her world was dying from the plague that human doctors had been treating. We are dying here. Our medical systems are failing. The humans took everything when they left. Everything. Another delegate stood, his environment suit flickering with power fluctuations. Our station is falling apart. Life support is failing in 3 sections. The humans maintained systems we did not even know needed maintenance. We are suffocating in our own home. Torin raised his hand for silence. Enough. We must focus on the immediate threat. The Ravagers are not interested in negotiation. They consume everything in their path. We need military solutions. We need the humans, someone said quietly. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but everyone was thinking it. Finally, Torin spoke. I will contact Ambassador Ross. We will request Earth's assistance under emergency protocols. They will refuse, Threk said bitterly. Why would they help us now? The Council contacted Earth through official channels. The message was formal, carefully worded. It acknowledged the recent difficulties in Council-Earth relations and requested emergency military consultation regarding the Ravager threat. 48 hours passed with no response. 2 more worlds fell. The Council sent a second message, less formal this time, then a third, openly begging for help. On the 5th day, Ambassador Ross finally replied. His image appeared on the main chamber screen. He looked the same as always. Calm, professional, perfectly composed. He sat in an office on Earth, a window behind him showing blue sky and green trees. The contrast with the chaos in the council chamber was striking. Council Speaker Torin, Ross said politely, I received your messages. What can Earth do for you? Torin leaned forward desperately. Ambassador Ross, you know what is happening. The ravagers are destroying our worlds. We need military assistance immediately. Ross appeared to consider this. That is unfortunate. However, I recall that the Council recently voted to reconsider Earth's military protection treaties. As I understand it, the Council decided such treaties were no longer necessary. That was a mistake, Torin said. We acted hastily. We are prepared to negotiate new terms. What terms did you have in mind? A return to the previous arrangement. Earth provides military support and in exchange. In exchange for what? Ross interrupted. Observer status, the privilege of being mocked in your chamber, the opportunity to die protecting those who despise us. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Ross continued, his voice never rising but somehow filling the chamber with its quiet intensity. No, Speaker Torin. If Earth is to risk human lives defending Council worlds, there will be new terms, significant ones. What do you want? Torin asked, defeat clear in his voice. Ross smiled slightly. I will send you our requirements. You have 24 hours to respond. The connection ended. The council chamber remained silent. They all knew they would accept whatever Earth demanded. They had no choice. Without human help, the ravagers would consume everything. The document arrived exactly 24 hours later. Council delegates gathered in the chamber to review Earth's demands. What they read made several species gasp in shock. Others simply stared in disbelief. This is extortion, Threk said, his voice lacking its usual aggression. They want complete restructuring of Council authority. Torin read through the list again. Earth demanded permanent seats on the Council's primary decision-making body, not observer status. Full voting rights equal to the founding species. Second, all human military forces would operate under human command only, with Council forces supporting them, not the other way around. Third, Earth would receive unrestricted access to resource-rich territories, including the outer rim sectors they had originally requested. But that was just the beginning. Earth wanted shared technology agreements on everything from faster-than-light drives to medical research. They wanted formal recognition as a protected species, meaning any attack on human interests would be treated as an attack on the Council itself. They wanted their own military academies to train Council forces in human tactical methods. The list went on for 12 pages. We cannot agree to this, a Vorfian delegate protested. It would completely shift the balance of power in the galaxy. What power? Someone else replied. Half our worlds are burning. The Ravagers just destroyed another colony 2 hours ago. We have no power left. Torin looked older than he had a week ago. The stress was visible in every movement. Does anyone have an alternative? Can any species here guarantee they can stop the Ravagers alone? Silence answered him. The Krellians, who boasted the strongest military in Council space, had lost 30 ships trying to defend their mining operations. The Vorfians, with their advanced energy weapons, could not even scratch Ravager armor. The Draxans had lost 3 entire worlds. I move we accept Earth's terms, Torin said quietly. All in favor. Every hand rose. Even Threk, who looked like the vote was physically painful for him. Torin activated the communication channel. Ambassador Ross, the Council accepts your terms. We request immediate military intervention. Ross appeared on screen within seconds, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Excellent. I will need every Council military leader to report to Earth within 48 hours for strategic coordination. Admiral Webb will be taking command of the combined defense fleet. Taking command, Threk repeated. Your term said human forces would operate independently. No, Ross corrected. Our term said human forces would operate under human command. Your forces will support our operations. Admiral Webb will coordinate everything. Unless you would prefer to continue your current strategy of losing every engagement. No one argued. The military leaders received their orders and began the journey to Earth. Some had never visited the human homeworld before. What they found surprised them. Earth was heavily fortified. Defensive satellites that made Council networks look primitive surrounded the planet in multiple layers. Massive shipyards constructed vessels at a pace that seemed impossible, and the fleet itself was enormous. Hundreds of ships that had supposedly been scattered across the galaxy were now assembled in perfect formation. "You were never scattered," a Krellian admiral realized. "You were preparing." Admiral Patricia Webb stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station. Around her, holographic displays showed every Ravager movement across the galaxy. Human intelligence officers analyzed patterns, predicted routes, calculated response times. "We have been tracking the Ravagers for 4 years," Webb explained to the assembled Council military leaders. "We knew they would reach Council space eventually. We tried to warn the Council twice. Both times our reports were dismissed as human paranoia." She pulled up detailed scans of Ravager ships and biology. The Ravagers operate on swarm behavior. They have no central command in the traditional sense. Each ship is semi-autonomous, but they coordinate through bioelectric signals. Their ships are grown, not built, which is why your energy weapons are ineffective. You are trying to burn organic armor that regenerates. A Vorfian commander leaned forward. "If energy weapons do not work, what does?" Webb smiled grimly. "Kinetic weapons, explosives, the kind of primitive, brutal weapons Earth specialized in before we reached the stars. Weapons we never stopped developing even after we learned about energy shields and plasma cannons." She activated another display showing human weapon systems. Railguns that fired projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Missiles carrying antimatter warheads. Even old-fashioned explosive rounds loaded with materials that Ravager biology could not process or regenerate from. "The Ravagers evolved to fight species like yours," Webb continued. "Advanced civilizations that rely on energy weapons and shields. They have never fought a species that still uses chemical explosives and solid ammunition. That is our advantage." Over the next 72 hours, Admiral Webb reorganized the entire Council military structure. Species that had fought independently for generations suddenly found themselves integrated into a unified command system. Human tactical officers were assigned to every Council ship. Communication protocols were standardized. Training began immediately. The Council forces learned quickly that human military doctrine was different from anything they knew. It was aggressive, flexible, and willing to accept casualties to achieve objectives. Human commanders did not retreat from unfavorable odds. They adapted and found ways to win anyway. Captain Lisa Grant briefed a group of Draxan pilots on engagement tactics. "Ravager ships are tough but not invulnerable. They adapt to your weapons, yes, but adaptation takes time. If you hit them with different attack types in rapid succession, they cannot adjust fast enough. Energy weapons first to drain their shields, then switch to kinetic rounds while they are reconfiguring. Keep changing your approach every 30 seconds." A Draxan pilot raised a claw. "This seems wasteful. Why not simply use the most effective weapon continuously?" "Because the most effective weapon changes every 30 seconds, Grant explained. "You are fighting an enemy that learns. Stop thinking like you are attacking a static target. Think like you are fighting something alive and intelligent that wants to eat your planet." The training was intense and brutal. Council forces were accustomed to formal military protocol and careful planning. Human forces drilled them in chaos management and rapid decision-making. They ran simulation after simulation, each one showing Council forces making fatal mistakes, then learning from those mistakes. On the 5th day, Admiral Webb called all senior officers to a briefing. The holographic display showed the Ravager fleet's current position. "They are hitting colony worlds because those targets are easy," Webb explained. "Spread out, lightly defended, full of resources, but they are also heading somewhere specific. Our analysis shows they are moving toward the Council homeworld itself. Shocked murmurs filled the room. The Council homeworld was the most heavily defended location in the galaxy, or it had been before humans left. "We are not going to defend it," Webb said calmly. "We are going to let them come." "You are insane," Threx shouted. "Billions live on the homeworld." "And billions will survive," Webb replied, "because we are not going to fight them there. We are going to fight them here." She indicated a point in space 3 systems away from the homeworld. "This is where we make our stand. We will use the Council homeworld as bait and crush the Ravagers when they cluster together for the final assault." She looked around the room at faces from a dozen different species. "The Ravagers think they are hunting prey. We are going to teach them they are wrong. We are going to show them what happens when prey fights back." The plan was set. The combined Human Council fleet would meet the Ravagers in the Kessler system, a place with asteroid fields and debris that would favor the defenders. It was the most dangerous military gamble in Council history. But looking at Admiral Webb's confident expression, even the skeptical Council commanders began to believe it might work. Earth had not just prepared weapons. They had prepared a strategy. And after watching the Council fail repeatedly against the Ravagers, that strategy represented their only hope. The Kessler system looked like a graveyard. Thousands of asteroid fragments drifted through space, remnants of a planet that had shattered in some ancient cataclysm. Between the rocks floated debris from old battles, derelict ships from conflicts centuries past. It was perfect for an ambush. Admiral Webb watched her tactical display as the fleet took position. 300 Council ships formed the outer perimeter. They looked impressive, their hulls gleaming with the advanced materials their civilizations had perfected. But Webb knew these ships had failed repeatedly against the Ravagers. Technology alone would not win this battle. Behind the Council forces waited Earth's fleet, smaller numbers but different doctrine. Human ships were built for durability, not elegance. They carried redundant systems, armored hulls, and weapons that other species considered outdated. Webb smiled at the irony. The galaxy had mocked Earth's primitive technology. That primitive technology was about to save them all. Captain Ray Foster adjusted his harness in the cockpit of his fighter. Around him, 200 other human pilots did the same. The fighter wing was tiny compared to Council standards, where squadrons numbered in thousands. But human fighters were piloted, not automated. Each one carried a person willing to die to protect others. "All fighters, this is Admiral Webb. The Ravagers will arrive in approximately 40 minutes. Remember your training. They will try to swarm you. Do not let them cluster. Keep moving, keep firing, and trust your wingmates." Foster checked his weapons one more time. Missiles loaded with antimatter cores. Railguns firing depleted uranium rounds. Even a few old chemical explosives that Webb had insisted they carry. His fighter did not have the speed of Council vessels or their powerful shields, but it had something more important. It had him. The Ravager fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a nightmare becoming real. Sensors showed over 2,000 vessels, each one bristling with the organic weapons that had devastated so many worlds. They moved in perfect coordination, their swarm intelligence directing them toward the Council homeworld just beyond this system. Then they detected the waiting fleet. The Ravagers did not hesitate or slow down. They had never encountered resistance they could not overcome. Their ships accelerated, forming attack waves that rolled forward like a dark tide. Webb gave the order, "Council forces, open fire, show them what you have got." Energy weapons lit up space. Plasma cannons, particle beams, exotic radiation that could melt solid metal. The barrage struck the lead Ravager ships with devastating force. For a moment, it seemed to work. Several enemy vessels ruptured, leaking atmosphere and biological fluid into the void. Then the Ravagers adapted. Their organic hulls shifted, changing composition to absorb and redirect energy. The second wave of Council fire did half the damage. The third wave barely scratched them. Phase 1 complete, Webb said calmly. Human forces engage. Foster launched with his wing. They screamed past the larger Council ships, tiny fighters moving at speeds that made Council pilots nervous. The Ravagers tried to target them, but human vessels were designed for evasive flight. They wove through enemy formations like birds fleeing a storm. "Pick your targets," Foster shouted. "Remember, change weapons every 30 seconds." His fighter locked onto a mid-sized Ravager vessel. He fired missiles first. The antimatter warheads detonated against the organic hull, creating explosions that the Ravagers had never experienced. Their adaptive armor tried to compensate, thickening and hardening against the blast. 30 seconds, Foster switched to railguns. Solid metal rounds punched through the hardened armor at relativistic speeds. The Ravagers shifted again, softening their hulls to absorb kinetic impact. 30 seconds. Foster released chemical explosives, crude bombs that seemed almost medieval compared to the technology around them. But the Ravagers had never fought anyone who used such weapons. The chemicals reacted with their biology in ways their evolution had not prepared for. The Ravager ship began to disintegrate. Foster did not celebrate. He was already moving to the next target. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human fighters struck with unpredictable weapons while Council ships provided covering fire. The Ravagers, accustomed to facing predictable advanced technology, struggled to adapt to Earth's mixed warfare approach. But there were so many of them. For every Ravager ship destroyed, 3 more pressed forward. They began targeting the fighters specifically, recognizing them as the primary threat. Foster watched 2 of his squadron mates disappear in explosions of shredded metal. "We cannot hold them," a Krellian commander reported. "They are breaking through the line." "All ships fall back to secondary positions," Webb ordered. "Draw them into the asteroid field." The combined fleet retreated in what looked like panic. The Ravagers pursued aggressively, their swarm behavior interpreting the withdrawal as victory. They pushed deeper into the Kessler system, surrounding themselves with drifting rocks and debris. Webb waited until the enemy fleet was exactly where she wanted them. Now. Hidden throughout the asteroid field, weapons activated. Not attached to ships, attached to the asteroids themselves. Humans had spent the past week turning the rocks into mines, loading them with explosives, and setting up remote detonation systems. The asteroids exploded simultaneously. Thousands of them, creating a killing field of shrapnel, radiation, and kinetic energy moving in every direction. Ravager ships caught in the blast could not adapt fast enough. Their organic hulls were shredded by metal fragments moving at orbital velocities. Over 600 Ravager vessels were destroyed in the first minute. The survivors tried to reform, but human forces were ready. Foster led his remaining fighters back into the chaos, targeting the disoriented enemy ships. Admiral Webb watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. All ships, full assault, hit them while they are confused. The Council fleet surged forward with renewed confidence. Energy weapons that had been ineffective before now found targets that were already damaged and struggling. Human ships fired everything they had, not conserving ammunition, throwing every weapon at an enemy that was finally vulnerable. The battle raged for 3 more hours. Ships from both sides died in fire and vacuum. Foster lost half his squadron. A Vorfian cruiser exploded protecting a human destroyer. A Krellian frigate rammed a Ravager vessel twice its size, sacrificing itself to save a damaged Council transport. But slowly, inevitably, the tide turned. The Ravagers had never faced coordinated resistance, had never fought enemies who adapted as quickly as they did, had never encountered species willing to die to protect each other. The surviving Ravager ships began to retreat. Their swarm intelligence, for the first time in their species' history, calculated that this battle could not be won. They broke formation and fled toward the edge of the system. "Do not let them escape," Webb ordered. "If even one ship survives, they will return with more." The pursuit continued for another hour. Human fighters hunted down fleeing vessels. Council ships formed blockades at likely escape routes. One by one, the remaining ravagers were found and destroyed. When the last enemy ship finally exploded, silence fell across the communication channels. Crew members on every ship simply sat in shock, unable to believe what they had accomplished. Foster guided his damaged fighter back toward the carrier. His cockpit was cracked, life support failing, but he was alive. As he passed Council ships, he saw them activating their lights in salute, a tradition older than spaceflight itself, acknowledging worthy allies. Admiral Webb broadcast to the entire fleet. "All ships stand down from combat status. Damage reports and casualty counts to follow. You fought well today. Every species, every ship, every person. The ravagers came to devour us. Instead, they learned that this galaxy protects its own." She closed the channel and allowed herself one moment of exhaustion. They had won, but the cost had been severe. Thousands dead, dozens of ships destroyed. The ravagers were defeated, but the scars of this battle would last for generations. The Council chamber had been rebuilt. The damage from a Ravager scout probe that had briefly broken through to the homeworld was repaired, but something fundamental had changed. The seats were rearranged now. The tiered levels that had once separated species by importance were gone, replaced by a circular arrangement where every delegate sat at the same height. At the center table, no longer elevated above the others, sat the primary council members. Ambassador David Ross occupied one of those seats, not as an observer, not as a petitioner, as an equal. The chamber was full for the first time in weeks. Species that had fled during the crisis returned to find a very different galaxy waiting for them. The formal session was about to begin, but Ross noticed something. Several delegates were standing near the memorial wall that had been installed along one side of the chamber. The wall displayed names, thousands of them, every person from every species who had died fighting the Ravagers. Human names appeared frequently, but not exclusively. Vorfians who had held defensive lines, Draxans who had protected evacuation ships, Krellians who had learned to follow human tactical commands and died executing those orders perfectly. Council Speaker Torin called the session to order. He looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been wisdom earned through suffering. This council formally recognizes the restructuring agreement signed under emergency conditions during the Ravager crisis. Earth is hereby granted full council membership, with voting rights equal to founding species. All previous territorial disputes are resolved in favor of expanded Earth jurisdiction. Technology sharing protocols are now in effect. He paused and looked directly at Ross. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that cannot be measured in treaties or territory. Ross stood to respond. "Speaker Torin, Earth did not save the Council for gratitude. We did it because extinction of sentient life is unacceptable to us. However, we will not forget that this crisis was made worse by the very attitudes this Council previously embodied." The chamber remained quiet. Ross continued. "Earth was mocked for our primitive technology. Our contributions were dismissed. Our people died protecting worlds whose governments never bothered to learn their names. That cannot happen again." A Vorfian delegate rose. "Ambassador Ross, we acknowledge our mistakes, but surely you understand we acted according to our cultural understanding. We did not mean—" "You did not mean to be cruel," Ross interrupted. "You simply believed yourself superior. There is a difference, but the result was the same. Human lives were valued less than your convenience." He activated a holographic display showing combat footage from the battle. During the fight, something changed. Council forces followed human commands not because treaties required it, but because they trusted us. Krellian pilots flew formations they had never trained for because they believed human tactics would work. Vorfian ships protected human fighters because they understood we were protecting them. The footage showed a moment where a damaged Council cruiser drifted helplessly. Human fighters swarmed around it, intercepting Ravager attackers until the cruiser could retreat. Then it showed the reverse, Council ships providing cover fire for human vessels making dangerous runs through enemy formations. "That is what saved us," Ross said quietly. "Not human weapons or Council technology, the willingness to protect each other regardless of species, to value every life equally." Admiral Patricia Webb entered the chamber, still in her military uniform. She had been overseeing the integration of human tactical doctrine into permanent Council military training. Several Council officers followed her, wearing insignia that mixed their species symbols with Earth emblems. "The Joint Military Command is now operational," Webb reported. "We have established 3 training academies where human and Council forces learn together, not human methods or Council methods. Combined methods that use the best of all our capabilities." A Draxan general stood. His name was Korik, and he had lost his entire fleet in the early days of the Ravager invasion. "Admiral Webb and her staff have revolutionized our understanding of warfare, but more importantly, they have taught us about sacrifice. Human forces accept casualties that we would consider unacceptable, not because they value life less, but because they value the mission more." Ross nodded. "That is perhaps the hardest lesson. Earth learned centuries ago that sometimes protecting others requires personal cost. We are not brave because we are human. We are brave because we choose to be. Any species can make that choice." The session continued for hours. New treaties were formalized. Territory was redistributed. Economic agreements were restructured to reflect Earth's new status, but the real changes were harder to quantify. Species that had barely communicated before the crisis now worked together regularly. Technology sharing worked in both directions, with Council species discovering that human innovations in certain fields surpassed their own. The rigid hierarchy that had defined galactic civilization for millennia began to dissolve. 3 months after the battle, Captain Ray Foster visited the Draxan colony world of Hestara. The planet was being rebuilt after Ravager devastation. He walked through the memorial garden, where the names of the 23 human crew members who had died protecting this world years ago were now carved in stone. A Draxan child approached him, speaking careful English she had clearly practiced. "Are you human military?" Foster knelt down to her level. "I am a pilot. I fought in the big battle." "My teacher says humans saved us. That you did not have to, but you did anyway." Foster looked at the memorial, thinking of friends whose names were carved there. "We saved each other. Your people fought bravely too." The child handed him a drawing. It showed a human ship and a Draxan ship flying side by side, both decorated with colorful patterns. "I made this for you, to say thank you." Foster took the drawing carefully. "This is beautiful. What are these patterns?" "They are friendship symbols. My grandmother says when 2 peoples protect each other, they should show it." Back on Earth, President Hayes reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were expanding into the territories granted by the new treaties. Human ships patrolled trade routes alongside Council forces. Human scientists worked in research facilities that had previously been closed to them. But the report that interested her most came from Dr. Rebecca Stone. The medical expert who had questioned the withdrawal was now leading a joint Human Council team developing treatments for diseases that affected multiple species. Her message was brief. "Madam President, we are making progress that would have been impossible working separately. Collaboration is producing results that benefit everyone." Hayes smiled. The crisis had been terrible. The cost had been high. But humanity had gained something more valuable than territory or treaties. They had gained respect. Not demanded, not purchased, but earned through sacrifice and competence. The galaxy had learned that Earth was not primitive. Different, yes, but different did not mean lesser. Human adaptability, human courage, and human willingness to protect others had proven as valuable as any advanced technology. In the rebuilt council chamber, a new tradition had emerged. Before each session began, delegates stood in silence facing the memorial wall, remembering those who died, honoring their sacrifice, acknowledging that every species, every culture, every individual had value. Ambassador Ross stood with them, reading names he had memorized. The galaxy had mocked Earth. Treaties had ended overnight. And in the crisis that followed, humanity had shown what they truly were. Not primitive survivors, not inferior species begging for recognition. Partners, protectors, equals. The galaxy would never forget again.